Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got our second week of power rankings. We did our first week of power rankings last week. We're going to do our second week, and we've got some changes in the power rankings as things have shaped up over the last week. We'll get to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Talkie channel. Before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all your support. We know it's without you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below, and don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so someone else gets in this video. So as we did last week, we're doing another power rankings video. We're going to start with some honorable mentions before we get into our top 10 teams after week 2. So our 3 honorable mentions this week are 3 Eastern Conference teams. Last week our honorable mentions were the Wild, the Blues, and the Bruins. This week we have our honorable mentions being first the Carolina Hurricanes. This week was a pretty good week for the Carolina Hurricanes. Started out 0-0 after a loss to Tampa. I did consider at one point earlier on to put them in the power rankings, but they did lose on Saturday, but they beat the New Jersey Devils, which is a really hard thing to do early on in the season. They also wound up being another team, I can't remember who it was at this point, and then they lost to St. Louis narrowly. But they also beat Pittsburgh. So they had a really good week. They're up to 500 now. They're looking really good. Their off-season additions like Roslovic and Gostisbehere are producing really well. This team looks really good. I just have them barely out of the top 10 at this point. So that's where I have Carolina. Another honorable mention would be the Florida Panthers. Last week they were 2-2-0. I had them 8th in my power rankings. They do slip out of the top 10 for the time being. They went 1-1-1 this week. They lost in overtime to Vancouver, beat Vegas. They also beat Columbus, I think it was. So they did all right this week. They definitely were able to remain a really competitive team, but they do, in my opinion, fall out of the top 10 at this point. So still, even though they're 4-2-1 right now, I think they're still a really good team. And Tampa Bay is also a team I have to give some honorable mentions to. The Bulls had a really good week this week. They started out 1-0. I didn't put them on my power rankings last week because they'd only played one game. They had 2 really impressive wins after that, be it the Vancouver Canucks, narrowly edged out the Golden Knights. Really impressive fashion. Kucherov was having a fantastic start to the year. But the reason I'm not putting them on my top 10 power rankings is because after that they had back-to-back losses, a rather high-scoring, narrow loss to the Ottawa Senators, and then yesterday Vasilevsky got pulled after letting in 4 goals on 14 shots against the Maple Leafs. So I'm not going to put them on the power rankings because they've had 2 back-to-back really sour losses against the Ontario teams, but still, they had a really good week, downing Vancouver and Vegas after beating Carolina earlier. So they're 3-2-0, they're really good, but I have them as an honorable mention to have on my top 10, so interesting out there. Now going over to my top 10 power rankings for this week. We're going to start number 10, and I have the debut of the Seattle Kraken. This past week has been a phenomenal week for that team. They started the week off by beating the Nashville Predators, then went and beat the Philadelphia Flyers, putting up a combined 13 goals in those 2 games, and finished off the week by getting an overtime victory over the Calgary Flames, who were at that point undefeated. So the Kraken have had one heck of a week. They're 3-0-0 this week. That brings us out to a complete record of 4-2-0, and their only 2 losses were barely getting shut out by the Stars and a narrow come-from-behind victory by the St. Louis Blues. I mean, honestly, this Kraken team is looking fantastic this year. They're looking way better than last year. Stevenson and Montour are fitting in fantastically, and after 3 straight wins, I gotta put them in my top 10. So Kraken are going to round out at 10. At number 9, we have the Utah franchise. Fall a little bit from last week. I think they had them at like 7 last week. They do wind up going, I think, 1-1 this week. They lost in overtime to the Ducks, which wasn't overly fantastic, but it was a high-scoring affair. And then they won in overtime over Boston, which was a narrow defensive battle, really the first defensive game they were able to win this year. So honestly, Utah did all right this week. Not too many games, but they got 3 of a possible 4 points. Still doing pretty good. They fall only a couple spots and they remain in my top 10 power rankings. Utah's looking good, even though their blue line's a little bit banged up right now. I think their offense is still looking really lethal, and their goaltending's looking pretty good too. So interesting note there. At 8th overall in the power rankings, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs have been doing fantastic this year. I mean, when we talked about this last week, they were 2-0. They extended their winning streak to 3-1-0 before losing to the New York Rangers, who are playing at an unreal level at this point. That dropped them to 3-2-0, but then they had a fantastic game yesterday against the Tampa Bay Lightning when they won 5-2 to improve to 4-2-0. So this team has been looking fantastic this year. They continue to do really good. They're 2-0 this week. They're 4-2-0 on the year. Their offense is starting to get better. Matthews, Nylander, they're starting to produce a little bit more. Defensively, they look a lot more sound than last year. So I have them at 8th right now. And my power rankings, still a little bit of a slip from last week, but I think they're pretty good. At 7th overall, we have the debut of the Minnesota Wild. The Wild were one of my honorable mentions from last week, but this week won both their games they played. One over St. Louis, 4-1 victory that included a goalie goal from Philip Gustafsson. Then they also were able to beat beat Columbus Blue Jackets. They remain on a 5-game point streak to start the season. They've looked phenomenal so far this year. They've not trailed for 1 second this year. So the Wild are looking phenomenal. They're looking lethal. This team has got a point in all 5 games. They're up to 8 points. This team looks great. And they are looking like a team who could be a playoff team this year. So I'm putting Minnesota at number 7 on my power rankings. At number 6 on my power rankings, I have the Calgary Flames. I had them jumping up a couple of spots from, I think it was 8th last week. They did all right this week. They went 101. They beat the Chicago Blackhawks, lost in overtime, like we said, to the Seattle Kraken. So 3 of a possible 4 points isn't too bad. Still haven't lost in regulation yet. So this Flames team is looking good. Do I expect it to continue? Probably not, but it's good while it lasts. They're doing fantastic. Starting out 4-0-1 on the year. So even though their winning streak is coming to an end, I still think they're doing really good, and that's why I bumped them up a couple of spots in my power rankings. So Calgary got a win, an overtime loss, and I have them finishing 6th on my power rankings at this point. At number 5 of my power rankings, I have the Washington Capitals. Now last week they had only played 1 game. That was a loss to Devils. This week, 3-0-0, and the wins were impressive. They beat the Vegas Golden Knights 5-2, ending the Golden Knights winning streak. They beat the Dallas Stars 3-2, ending the Dallas Stars winning streak. And then they beat the New Jersey Devils in overtime in a rematch a week later. So all in all, the Caps have had a really good stretch over this past week, going 3-0-0, and the quality of opponents were fantastically good. So in my opinion, they have to be a little bit higher. So I'm putting them at number 5 for our debut of the power rankings for the Washington Capitals. I mean, they were phenomenal this week, and I think I just got to give it to them. They had a really good week, beating some extremely tough opponents and finding ways to gain those wins. So I'm going to give the Caps props and give them 5th in my power rankings because they, like I said, they did fantastic, winning 3 out of 3 games. At 4th in my power rankings, I still have the New York Rangers. They are right now 4-0-1. From last week, they won 2 games. I think they beat Detroit, and they also beat the Maple Leafs. So they won a couple of games. They looked really good in those games. Panarin's looking really good. Lafreniere, Zibanejad, Kreider, their big guys are doing really good. Defensively, they're doing pretty good. Shesterkin's looking fantastic. So all in all, the Rangers are looking pretty good. So I got to keep it at number 4. They still have a 5-game point streak to start the season. So pretty good stuff there for New York, but I'm keeping them at number 4. At number 3, I have the New Jersey Devils. I have them dropping off a little bit here from last week. They didn't do overly bad. Went 1-1-1 this week. They beat the Ottawa Senators, lost to the Carolina Hurricanes, and lost in overtime, like we just said, to the Washington Capitals. So all in all, it wasn't a bad week. 3 of a possible 6 points isn't overly bad, but there were a couple of teams I think did do a little bit better than the Devils did this week. And after last week, with them going 4-1-0, I think they're still a really good team. I think they've played the most out of anyone at this point in the season, but still, I think the Devils are a really good team, and I'm keeping them in my top 5. I'm keeping them in my top 3, but I don't think they're the number 1 team of the power rankings at this point in time, so I have them at 3rd at this point, even though their offense is clicking and their defense looks good. At 2nd in the power rankings this week, I have the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets did fantastic this week. They had 2 games, won both of them. It was a dominant offensive performance against the Sharks, winning 8-3, and then they doubled up the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-3, so their defense has been a little bit lacking over the past 2 games, but their offense has been rolling, 14 goals over the 2 games this week. They looked phenomenal. They're up to 5-0-0, the last undefeated team in the NHL. They are proving to everyone that they're going to be a dangerous team. I thought they would be slipping a little bit, and their defensive game would be a little bit off from last year. They don't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, and their offense looks to be lethal. So all in all, I think the Jets had a fantastic week. They remain the only undefeated team, and I'm bumping them up from, I think it was 5th last week to 2nd on my power rankings. So that's why I have the Jets. And at 1st in the power rankings, I have the Dallas Stars. The Stars did wind up having their winning streak snap this week, but they're still a really good team. They're 5-1-0. Like we said, they had the narrow loss to Washington. They also beat San Jose. They beat Edmonton, which was fantastic after the Oilers got a couple of wins. So all in all, the Stars had a pretty good week, beating Edmonton, San Jose. Narrow loss to Washington, but still, they looking really good. Andre's playing well. That defense is sound, even without a guy like Matt Dumba, who's injured right now. Offensively, they're looking really good. Stankoven's fitting in quite well. Sagan, Ben, Hintz, Robertson, they're all doing really well. So I think the Dallas Stars at this point look like a really good complete team, and I have them narrowly edging out Winnipeg and New Jersey for the top spot on this week's power ranking. So that's my current power rankings for this week 2 of the NHL season. I left your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below, and what do you think about your power rankings? But just to recap, I have Seattle at number 10, Utah at number 9, Toronto at number 8, Minnesota at number 7, Calgary at number 6, Washington at number 5, the Rangers at number 4, the Devils at number 3, the Jets at number 2, and the Stars at number 1 on my power rankings. Definitely, I'll let you guys thoughts on all of that, and I'll let you your guys' power rankings from the past 2 weeks down in the comment section below. that's all I'm talking for today. I'm going to tell you this video. If you're interested, subscribe down below. Thank you for your support. We know to stuff you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so we can all discuss in this video. Also a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. Leave links down in the description below. And I can't see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.